Happy Friday, everybody. It's Deadponic here again. Welcome back to more of Deadponic Talks. So, this one in particular, I had a hard time picking a subject that I really wanted to talk about. Uh, but I wanted to talk about this one, but I have to point something out. A little bit while back, I kind of made a promise to myself that I wouldn't get my channel involved in politics or, talk about real world like world politics and stuff that's going on all over the globe. But I've kind of decided to break that promise in a major way. And the reason for that is the the recent events have basically I've come to this conclusion that essentially, like I can't hide behind this anymore. I can't, I have to I have to speak my mind now. And after the last video I posted regarding the problem with what happened a couple weeks ago, I I figured now's a good time to come onto my show, if you will, regarding that particular um topic. So I'm gonna start in North America and kind of work my way, I guess you could say, east. So I'll start with the U.S. and what's going on there. Now, I did say at one point I wasn't gonna talk about a certain president, but I I decided I'm gonna talk about it because I got to get it out of my system. So the thing about Trump, and I haven't really considered this, but it's been quite a while since I've actually talked about him. But I'm concerned because given everything that's been going on as of late, it seems like his administration is either coming apart or they're doubling down. And the problem is, it all comes back to the Epstein files. Now, I shouldn't have to explain what the Epstein files are and who Jeffrey Epstein is. It's all over the news. But I wanted to bring this up because I've discussed this with people, and some people say, "Oh yeah, he's on the list, but he didn't do anything." But I honestly don't believe that. If you know his history regarding certain things, you know about the beauty pageant and the Access Hollywood tape and all that. But let's just say that, yeah, I the reason that the administration is being so aggressive and so, well, not aggressive but defensive about the list and releasing the files is because, well, Trump's on the list and they either don't want to release it because there might be damaging evidence, but there's also the fact that, it could compromise him in so many ways. And then you've got him using the National Guard and bits of the military, and deploying them in. I think it was the National Guard. Yeah, it was the National Guard. Deploying them in. Well, he wanted to deploy them in Chicago, but he deployed them in D.C. and a judge ruled that that was illegal. Like that is illegal. No joke. And I'm glad that they finally spoken out. It's crazy. Like, it's amazing that this judge, I don't know who the name of it is, but who their name is, but they ruled that Trump deploying National Guard into a a large populated city is illegal, and no justifiable grounds were given for him to deploy them. And it's just like they're finally starting to fight back. And Then, just recently, the Epstein survivors actually um, got their moment to speak out, and I am so glad that they did that because, oh my god, the amount of things. There was this documentary I watched about Epstein. It's called Filthy Rich, and I am so glad that that is the standard for understanding who Epstein is in a nutshell. But it's also sad because so many of his victims are either classified as Jane Does or they're too scared to speak out and tell their side of the story, or nobody believes them, which is just not right in any capacity. And the fact that Epstein was associated with Trump is not good. Not good at all. And yes, I know, I am aware that there were other politicians like Bill Clinton and a few other celebrities that were like Prince Andrew, I think it is. Not Prince Harry, but Prince Andrew. I know that they were on that list and and Prince Andrew was actually accused of, you know, I'm not going to say it out loud, but, you know, and it's just like the people, they're finally starting to they're starting to hold people accountable, but it's a long process, and it doesn't help that Trump has been trying to um distract the world, distract the country with something else. And also he announced new tariffs, and the Supreme Court ruled that these new tariffs were illegal. So they're starting to push back, which is good. And there were even talks of impeachment. Now, whether or not he would actually, it depends. I mean, whether or not he would actually get impeached depends heavily on the midterms. So, and it really depends. But then you also have things like Gavin Newsom, who is really hitting Trump in the where he's most vulnerable, which is his ego, because he's basically Newsom is basically employing a lot of what Trump did during 2016 and 2020 and 2024. He's basically attacking Trump on a level that Trump can't deal with. He's never had to deal with that from any of his political opponents. And for good reason. Like, they were not prepared in 2016 for the level of. They were not prepared for Trump's tactics because they were so used to the status quo that somebody just came out. He came out of nowhere, and he started attacking most of the candidates on a level that they had no concept of. Like, they couldn't understand how he was doing it, and then he just flat out didn't show up to the debate and held his own rally. So he broke so many norms with that, and well, Newsom is basically attacking him in a way that is on his level. He's essentially fighting fire with fire, and that is both. It can be a good thing, but it can also be a bad thing because it can backfire greatly, and that comes down to mainly the fact that, well, if you try to fight Trump on his level or use his own tactics against him, he's going to recognize that and he's probably going to call you out for it. But you also have to keep in mind that you are effectively attacking the one thing that gets under his skin the most, which is his ego. Anyway, so yeah, there's that. Now, I will freely admit I I don't know much about world politics, but the other thing I really wanted to talk about is when Trump was sworn in, he was inaugurated. One of the first things he did was he announced that he basically said, "Oh, I want to basically take over. Well, I want to annex Canada and Greenland." Well, that did not go well for him. In fact, there's barely been any talk from him regarding that. It's just been mostly tariffs and, the whole, like, oh, Canada has a fentanyl problem and they need to get their shit together. It's like, no, we don't have a fentanyl problem. The fentanyl is coming from the States into Canada. Or, sorry, no, hang on. Actually, I forget. I think it goes both ways, but we have our own problems we have to deal with. Like, for example, we have to deal with Polivier. We have to deal with, well, a bunch of things. Like, the Premier of Ontario, Doug Ford, he basically, because we basically provide a lot of electricity to the states, like through our power plants, and Ford was like, well, if you intend to do that, if you intend to annex us, then we'll just shut off the power, and yeah, nobody in range of that power plant will get electricity. It's like, yeah, that despite the fact that I am not a fan of Rob Ford, Doug Ford has done quite a lot for Ontario specifically, and I can appreciate that. Now, as for Carney, I don't think he's been bending the knee or um, conceding to Trump's demands. I don't think that. I think he's trying to work out a trade deal that benefits both countries, and well, Trump is giving him a hard time, but Carney's giving him a hard time. He's pushing back, which makes sense, and that's the thing that is impressing me right now. The other thing that really kind of bugged me too is, well, the main reason that Trump wouldn't be able to annex Canada in the first place is because we are part of NATO, and that means that the U.S. military would have basically NATO and the UN backing us up. Now, that's not to say that we can't hold our own, but it's a bit of a weird thing. But also, you have to remember that we haven't fought a major conflict in a long time. The last major conflict that we were involved with, specifically for Canada at least, was Afghanistan. Now, we were technically in a support role. We did fight there, but we were more kind of in a support role. But I know that there are Canadian soldiers who actually got injured and they fought in some of the toughest places in Afghanistan. So, and also they fought in other countries too. We fought in other countries like Syria. We fought in believe it or not, we actually fought in Somalia at one point. But I think it's a case of underestimating us is one of the biggest mistakes you can make. Now, Carney has been pushing for more military spending, which I'm okay with, but I'm also wary of because of the fact that more military spending, it could be perceived the wrong way. Okay, enough about that. All right, let's move on to Ukraine. So, this is my basic understanding of Ukraine is that, well, Russia's on the losing side right now. Like, Ukraine is putting up a hell of a fight, and I think that is absolutely great, and I'm hoping that Putin can see things, and hopefully he can come to the table and discuss possibly maybe a ceasefire, maybe an end to the conflict, because it's just we're on our 4th year since this whole thing started, and it's all started with Crimea, and oh god, it's hard to believe that this war has been going on for 4 years. I'm hoping that Putin specifically can see the common sense in that his military is not getting anywhere. In fact, they are effectively they're just being like they're being pushed back. And Ukrainians are holding the line. They will not go down without a fight. And it doesn't seem that Putin seems to understand that. Now, there is a whole geopolitical thing going on here that I don't even want to get into because you basically need a doctorate in order to understand it. But it's one of those things that just I would do more research into it. There's actually a great video about it, but anyway, not the point. So there's that, and well, I haven't heard much about regarding China and Taiwan. So I don't know how really to say about that, but this leads me to the big subject of this video, which is gonna get very like this may get controversial. So fair warning. So in order to understand what the situation is going on with Israel is and Palestine and all that, you have to look at the history and you have to realize that Palestine has been like ruled by several organizations and kingdoms and leaders and all that. So it's like you basically need a PhD in world history in order to understand this. Not only that, but you have to realize that as far as the international community is concerned, in the eyes of the international community, specifically the EU and the US and by extension Canada, Hamas is effectively classified as a terrorist organization. And that's important because yeah, they have the attack on Israel on October 7th can be considered a terrorist attack. But the problem is that while Hamas is guilty of that, Israel doesn't they're not squeaky clean either. It's not now keep in mind it's not the Israeli people, it's the Israeli government and the Israeli military that are doing this. But they've been bombing the hell out of Palestine, and this has led to several, like hundreds of thousands of people starving. Not to mention the whole thing with Gaza and all that. But I'm not even going to get into that. But that's the thing that has always bugged me. And when people ask me, "Oh, what's like? Do you support Israel? Do you support Palestine?" I can't really give you an answer. I honestly can't give you an answer. I don't know where I sit right now. I sympathize with both sides, but I don't have an opinion on this. Anyway, yeah, that's been my little rant. So I hope you guys enjoy listening to that. But I will see you next time.